If you were there last week, I talked about like three little things. One was that a lot of riffs end on that high A. And a lot of kind of riffing rock and roll songs that are written in A and G have this. And then, not to belabor the point, but it's just kind of cool and different than E, that you can go down to the 5 chord instead of having to go up to the 5 chord, which you always have to do in the key of E. Going up that 4 frets is always works. And really working on that, getting those notes in tune and to kind of have a feeling to them. Alright, so let's take a look at that Walking Blues. Not quite as cool, but that's basically what Robert Johnson's doing. He has his. It's not the. This isn't the right key because he was using a capo. He used a capo a lot. Also, unless you seek out the recordings that with Robert Johnson, unless you seek out the recordings that are very speeded down, his it's sort of believed after the fact that the tapes are sped up a little bit. And so it's always been hard to find the original keys for his music. The fact that he used a capo and the fact that the speeds may have been altered on the tape machine, make it kind of hard. And there's also no other instrument playing with it, so it's not out of tune with. It's just what it is. So the idea is to learn some technique here and hold yourself accountable for some discipline in terms of, because you need that to learn. And then at a certain point, just write your own song or come up with your own version of Walking Blues. I noticed that he never that Robert Johnson never goes to the 5 traditionally. It's always by way of the 4 chord. So he's like on the. And he also doesn't turn it around. We talked about turnarounds last week. So that thing is, one thing that's helpful learning this is you hear 3 notes It's really only 2 motions with the right arm, because the one is you're coming up on the E string to the 3rd fret, and then kind of barking out on that A, the root of the tuning, and then that's one, right? And then the second one is, and then right. Right, but that second motion is really, you don't stop the right hand until you're at this little sizzle note. So that's why I say 2 motions. 1, 2. And if you have trouble doing that, then just down, down. You can kind of see where if you mouth it, then you can kind of hear boom down, boom down, boom down. I'm speeding up. Boom down. So it's a syncopation. Boom down. That's on upbeat. So the first one, that's 1. You just, and the second one, if you're playing with your fingers, I hope you are playing with your fingers, by the way, it's, you just go down with your thumb, and then up with whatever, that's my, for me it's my middle finger, but it doesn't matter. Having just said that, then I did it with my index finger. Anyhow. So I'll do it like that's kind of more or less it. Girl, I'm walking, look around for my shoes. Just about that, I got these old walking blues. I'm just aping his thing. It's not how I do. It's gone. Wow, it's been hours, it's been days. Seems like my baby gonna change up all evil ways. Little daylight days. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm just singing it. See, I can't even. I have it in my head doing it the way that I do it, which, as you know, is. Again, I'm not a purist. That isn't what this is about, anyhow. I just always wanted to find the thing about the song that spoke to me, and I'd go after the song, or even if I was learning, I'd really try and do it, you know, but then very often I'd go back and listen a few months later, and I'd be like, oh man, I kind of took the basis of it, but I just totally also just played what I heard in my head, because I never really forced myself to go back and do some kind of like rendition thing, like a historical preservation project. It was never. That's not part of my thing. Whatever. Anyway, I digress. This. Like that. It's not really, that's not so easy. It's not so hard, but it's not so easy. We're gonna turn around. You know what? Playing it his way, it does sound better without a turnaround. Because it gets back to the walking, which is, it sounds like walking. If you're starting to get into the subtleness of it, where your thumb is in relation to the bridge, that also makes a big difference. Like, I don't know. So when I'm playing this, I'm trying to make that note bark a little bit like that. I'm backing up, I notice I'm backing up by the bridge a little bit more. And that kind of a little more. And also get that note to do that without that. And again, if you're having trouble with that, if you're having trouble with the sounds of the slide, with either the intonation or the touch, play more quietly. Just play it prayerfully, to get it in. If you're having trouble playing at volume, because you'll have a tendency to get more of those sounds, the rattles in it. And the rattles don't really matter, but I'll tell you what it does matter. It matters when you stick a microphone in front of it. Then it matters big time. We're going to stay with this tune. There's a lot in here, and it's... And also, these... I can tell you that when I'm doing that, there's almost no tension in my arm at all. I kind of anchor my thumb to the back of the neck, and I guess there's a very lightly, and the waggle's kind of coming from my wrist, but it's also, I think it's kind of coming from my forearm. It's like a combination of my forearm and my wrist. I'm looking at it. The little waggle. You gotta have a good waggle. And waggles vary. You can have this lazy or snap. And Robert Johnson's version of it, that was one of the things in this song that always kind of, a few tunes of his where he just snaps it, it's just like he tried to make it super abrupt, and not, sometimes he does that, but this, it's kind of a little intense sounding. And I was, and I mean, if you want to get all, right, a little more. more 70s about it. We can do that one too. So maybe we'll get to that. That's Little Red Rooster, which is a great one. Howlin' Wolf tune, Little Red Rooster. He's famous for it, and it kind of has the same. Totally comes from exactly the same place. But the Little Red Rooster is another song you can add to your repertoire and really not really have to learn anything new from this, because all the difference with Little Red Rooster is that it starts on the 4. I'm a little red rooster, 2 days across the day. I'm a little red rooster. You know the song. Sitting every way. So he's, anyway, coming from the same place. Meanwhile, back at Walking Blues. I know I threw in an extra bar there. That'll happen sometimes. Yeah, you're never morning. Not about that. I got these old Walking Blues. Just puts it in. You don't know. I see my day. See that my baby gotta change her go that way. See, I'm moving my thumb closer to the bridge for those single notes. And so on this one too, all the bass, any of the bass strings are only played with my thumb. You know, this, I think you could play that song with the B string right off of the guitar and you wouldn't even know it. Almost the G string too. That's kind of a Muddy Waters thing. That's That's a Muddy Waters 5 deal. Same, you know, the story was that they were trying to find Robert Johnson for the Spirituals to Swing concert, to bring him to New York City to play. And, you know, along the line, they found out, well, no, he's dead. And so then well, the idea was to find someone, is there someone else down there that's similar to him? And people said, well, there's this guy named McKinley Morganfield, who was Muddy Waters. And Muddy Waters subsequently was recorded on his front porch. And the rest is history. But he came from that same thing. So when I say like Robert Johnson, it would be his thing on this particular song, Walking Blues. Right on that. Muddy's thing was kind of like a... And he in fact has a tune I've played for years and years, and if you ever see me play, I start about every damn show I've ever done practically with a band with this. That is a very close riff off. I think the first song that Muddy Water was recorded for Alan Lomax on his front porch is called Country Blues No. 1. And of course I did this. No one, into that. But it's now I can't even remember. But the little, that's all. But his, let's see. That's it. I guess so. Then maybe it's. Anyway, I'd have to go back and listen, but you get the idea. These are not, any of these things are not dissimilar pieces of music. If you learn walking blues, you get a lot of good stuff, and if you're interested in building a repertoire of slide guitar, you learn walking blues, you can learn about, like, I don't know, a ton of other songs, and not really... I mean, the songs are songs. You can't just play the same thing. It's not. I hate that. You can't do it. But you can use exactly the same skill set you acquire learning how to play walking blues. You can utilize on a lot of songs in this tuning. Some the singing starts on the 4, some the singing starts on the 1. From artist to artist, there may just be subtle differences. Sometimes there are big differences. Of course, there's tempo. That's a thing. So, in terms of building a little arsenal of slide guitar stuff, this is a fertile territory. And I'm gonna do it again, but I'm gonna use that. I'll use the Muddy Waters. I use the Muddy Waters thing on the going to the dominant chord. And now. Breaking my own rules. Just two motions. Yeah, it's got that feeling. Walking down the road. Kind of like a what I say kind of vibe there. Fretting behind the slide. We'll get there.